Ever heard about a woman who charmed her way into stealing millions in diamonds?
Wow.
It sounds like a Hollywood movie, right?
Yeah.
But this is the real-life story of Doris Payne,
Oh, wow.
a jewel thief. Her career spanned decades,
Mm.
starting back in the 1960s. And get this, it lasted until she was 87 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
87.
87.
It's a remarkable story. Really captures the imagination, and that's what we are going to dive deep into today.
Yeah, and we've got some pretty incredible sources for this deep dive. We're looking at Doris Payne's own autobiography. It's called Diamond Doris.
Okay.
And we'll also be referencing the documentary about her life,
Oh, cool.
The Life and Crimes of Doris Payne. So let's get into it. Doris's story begins in the 1930s.
Okay.
Slab Fork, West Virginia.
Okay.
Not exactly known for lavish lifestyles.
Right.
Think like small mining town where hardship was a daily reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the context where we see her early life kind of unfold.
Right.
And her father was abusive towards her mother. And this experience, I think, really instilled in Doris this fierce desire for independence.
Yeah.
A refusal to be controlled.
And then there's this pivotal moment when she's about 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom wants to reward her for good grades. So she promises Doris a watch.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to this local general store, the kind where everybody knows everybody.
Mm.
And at first, the owner treats her kindly. But then when a white customer walks in, everything changes.
Mm.
He becomes dismissive and basically refuses to serve her. And this becomes like a defining moment in Doris's life. It's not just about, being denied a watch. It's about that feeling of being invisible, being treated differently based on, well, the color of her skin.
Absolutely. And she describes this really deep sense of injustice.
Yeah.
And in her own words, she says that this is when her war, quote unquote, with jewelry salesmen began. It's almost as if she saw them as a symbol of these societal inequalities that she was experiencing.
Right. And she doesn't just react emotionally.
Right.
She starts to strategize, right? She later tests out her theory. She takes a bus with a friend to a Woolworth's in Cleveland.
Okay.
She starts trying on watches,
Mm-hmm.
engages the salesman in conversation until, he loses track of how many she has. And then what does she do? She hides one in her glove, walks to the door, and then pretends to find it.
Wow. Like a scene straight out of a heist movie.
I know.
Except this is just the beginning for Doris. It's almost like she's practicing honing her craft.
Yeah, and the way she describes it in her autobiography is it's pretty chilling. She says, when we got to the street, we ran and cackled like two witches who had stolen the heart out of the chest of the king's firstborn son. We were as high as we could be. We were secretly in control of white men.
Wow, that quote really speaks volumes about this complex mix of emotions that's really driving her. There's a sense of power, there's defiance, almost a reclaiming of control in a world that made her feel powerless.
And tragically, her father's abuse just escalates. And so to help her mom escape, Doris actually takes a much bigger risk.
Wow.
Steals a diamond, pawns it, gives the money to her mom,
Yeah.
and they start a new life in Cleveland.
It's a really significant act. It shows her loyalty to her mother, but also this willingness to operate outside the law, when she felt the traditional avenues were closed off to her.
But it wasn't a one-time thing.
Yeah.
A few years later, a coworker confides in her that she desperately needs money for her mother's medication. Now, Doris could have just given her the money, right?
Right.
But that wasn't her style. She hatches this elaborate plan, I swear, worthy of a stage production.
Okay.
So this is where we start to see her signature style really emerge.
Yeah.
This meticulous planning,
Yeah.
the disguises,
You're right.
the elaborate backstories. It's almost theatrical.
It is.
So picture this, okay? She dresses her friend, who's white, in a stunning dress that her mother had made.
Mm-hmm.
Doris, in her nursing uniform, accompanies her friend to a department store and instructs her to act like a sickly heiress who's about to be engaged.
Wow. Brilliant. She's playing on societal perceptions, using her understanding of how people judge each other based on appearances to her advantage.
Exactly. And it works like a charm. The salesman, completely distracted.
Wow.
Doris swoops in, pockets a wedding set, later pawns it for what would be about $17,000 today.
Wow. That success must have solidified her belief in her own abilities.
Right.
It's more than just a crime. It's like a validation of her skills,
Exactly.
her intelligence, her ability to kind of outsmart the system that she felt had wronged her.
And from this point on, there's no turning back. She quits her nursing job and dedicates herself to this life of crime. She even called her heists campaigns,
Campaigns, huh?
which I think is very telling.
It is telling. It reveals her very meticulous approach, you
Mm.
know? Strategic thinking. She's not just randomly stealing, she's planning, researching, like a general preparing for battle.
She dives deep into the world of high-end jewelry, studying magazines like Vogue, Harper's Bazaar,
Oh, wow.
meticulously researching pieces, learning the behavior of wealthy women so she can blend in.
Yeah, it speaks to her adaptability, her
Yeah.
ability to transform herself to fit in any environment.
And his signature technique. It involved trying on multiple pieces,
Okay.
creating confusion, sleight of hand. She'd even pretend to find misplaced jewels to gain the salesman's trust, before making her move.
It's like a combination of psychological manipulation and pure skill.
Right.
I mean, she's not just stealing objects, she's stealing trust, exploiting people's assumptions and vulnerabilities.
But to really maximize her profits, she realized she needed a partner, somebody with connections in the jewelry world.
Right.
And that's where Babe Bronfield comes in. He owned nightclubs, knew the ins and outs of the industry.
Oh, wow.
So this partnership opens up a whole new world for Doris,
Mm-hmm.
allows her to sell the stolen goods for much higher prices than, like, a pawn shop would ever offer.
Right.
She's moving up in the criminal underworld.
Yeah.
And their relationship was intriguing. It was fueled by this mutual respect, a shared understanding of the game that they were playing. And there were even rumors of a romantic connection, despite Babe being married to somebody else.
Wow. Adds a whole layer of complexity to their story,
Right.
hinting at a deeper connection beyond just business.
But all this success comes with a price. By the early 1970s, Doris's notoriety catches up to her. And the Jewelers Security Alliance, this group dedicated to, preventing jewelry theft, they get wind of her activities.
Oh.
They start circulating these bulletins describing her methods, her appearance.
So the game is changing.
Right.
The stakes are higher,
Mm-hmm.
and she can no longer rely on anonymity.
Right.
She has to adapt,
Yeah.
become even more cunning,
Yes.
and perhaps even more daring.
So what does she do?
Yeah, what does she do?
Does she lie low, try to fade into the background? Not Doris.
No.
She decides to take her campaigns international.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a bold move, a calculated risk, She's no longer just a local thief. She's a global player operating in a world of luxury and high society.
And Europe becomes her playground. She's targeting these high-end jewelry stores across the continent, blending in seamlessly with the wealthy elite. There's even this incredible story about her time in Zurich after a successful heist. She's waiting to cross into France, but decides to go dancing first. And of course, she chooses a nightclub whose footage is broadcast live on television.
It's classic Doris, living on the edge, indulging in the finer things in life, seemingly oblivious to the danger lurking around the corner. You can almost feel the tension building, knowing what's about to happen.
As she's twirling on the dance floor, lost in the music. And the moment the lights suddenly come on and they're standing in the doorway, are the police ready to arrest her?
It's like a scene straight out of a movie. The glamorous jewel thief caught mid-dance her world, about to come crashing down. But even in this moment of crisis, Doris doesn't panic.
They put her on a train to Geneva, assuming she'll be safely delivered to waiting officers. But they underestimate Doris Payne's resourcefulness during a brief stop for water. She seizes her chance.
This escape is a testament to her quick thinking and her incredible ability to exploit even the smallest opportunity.
She jumps off the train, runs through farmland, flags down a passing car, and disappears into the Swiss countryside.
It's a daring escape, a testament to her determination and her unwavering belief in her own ability to outsmart the authorities.
Now let's talk about the heist that cemented Doris's place in the Criminal Hall of Fame. The Monte Carlo heist of 1974. Picture this: Doris, at 44 years old, arrives in Monte Carlo, the epitome of luxury and glamour, and checks into a luxurious hotel. She tells everyone she's the wife of the famous director, Otto Preminger.
This is where her understanding of human psychology really shines. She knows that people are often blinded by appearances, by status. Impersonating someone so well-known is a risky move, but she calculates that it will give her the access and credibility she needs.
And she plays the role flawlessly dressed, impeccably exuding confidence and sophistication. She strolls into Cartier, one of the most prestigious jewelers in the world. The salesman, completely taken by her persona, presents a tray of dazzling rings.
It's a masterclass in manipulation. She's using everything she's learned over the years, the disguises, the backstories, the psychological tactics to create an illusion of trust.
And when he's momentarily distracted, Doris calmly walks out of the store with a 10 to 12 carat diamond ring worth a staggering $550,000 at the time. That's over $3 million in today's money.
This heist is the pinnacle of her career. The sheer audacity, the meticulous planning, the flawless execution. It's a testament to her skill and her unwavering belief in her own abilities.
Even Doris herself was shocked by the value of the diamond. She later admitted that she thought, oh, you shouldn't have done this. But there's no turning back. Now she's in too deep.
It's fascinating how even she seems to recognize the magnitude of what she's done, yet she's still driven to see it through. There's a sense of compulsion, a need to complete the mission regardless of the risks.
At the airport, customs agents already suspicious approach her, believing she has the missing diamond. What follows is a scene of pure espionage that would make James Bond proud.
It's a display of incredible quick thinking and nerves of steel. She's facing the ultimate test, and she knows that one wrong move could mean the end of the line.
First, she hides the diamond in her coat pocket, then in a tissue. Finally, in a moment of pure genius, she pretends to blow her nose, discreetly transferring the ring into her mouth.
It's a sleight of hand that even seasoned professionals wouldn't see coming. She's using their own assumptions against them, their focus on the obvious.
The agents frisk her thoroughly, but they find nothing. Once they're gone, she coughs the ring into her hand and somehow manages to drop it into her boot. It's a close call, but she's pulled it off again.
It's a testament to her ability to remain calm under immense pressure, to think clearly and act decisively even when the stakes are incredibly high.
Since Monte Carlo doesn't have a women's jail, she's held in a luxurious hotel overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It's almost ironic, isn't it? The notorious jewel thief under arrest, but still surrounded by the trappings of wealth and privilege.
It's almost as if she's mocking the system, showing them that even when caught, she can still maintain a semblance of control of living on her own terms.
But Doris, ever the resourceful escape artist, is already planning her next move. She requests seemingly innocent items, nail clippers, and a sewing kit. What she does next is a stroke of pure genius.
This is where we see her meticulous planning and her incredible attention to detail come into play. She's always thinking several steps ahead, anticipating obstacles and devising solutions.
She uses the clippers to pry the diamond out of its setting, tosses the setting into the sea, and then sews the loose diamond into her girdle.
It's a bold move, one that requires incredible nerve and a willingness to endure discomfort for the sake of her freedom.
She wears that girdle for months, even when it's wet from washing. Talk about dedication. The diamond is never found, but she's still convicted and sentenced to 3 years in a low-security facility in Monaco.
Even in prison, Doris seems to find a way to bend the rules to her advantage. The facility is more like a bed and breakfast than a traditional prison.
But freedom is calling. After 9 months, she fakes a stomach virus, gets transferred to a hospital, and escapes through a bathroom window with the help of a sympathetic nun. It's like something out of a Hollywood movie.
It's another daring escape, highlighting her ability to charm and manipulate people to win their trust and enlist their help. She's a master of persuasion, able to turn even those in positions of authority to her side.
She makes her way to New York, sells the diamond for $150,000, which is about $850,000 today, and continues her globe-trotting life of crime.
This marks a turning point in her story. She's no longer just a thief. She's a legend, a figure of international intrigue, both admired and fueled for her skill and audacity. The Doris Payne we know, the woman who captivated the world with her daring heists, is born.
Doris's story isn't just about dazzling diamonds and, daring escapes.
Right.
It's also about a woman who's navigating a world, full of obstacles.
Yeah.
A world that often tried to, define her, limit her, tell her who she could be.
Absolutely. And it's really crucial to remember that Doris was operating during a time when societal inequalities were really deeply entrenched, particularly those based on race and gender.
Right.
She really had to fight for every opportunity that she got.
And she was definitely acutely aware of how those biases shaped perceptions.
Yeah.
She even said once, I'm sure they don't see me as a Black American woman who just walked in.
Yeah.
She understood the power of those assumptions, right? And used them to her advantage.
It's such a powerful statement. It highlights how she kind of weaponized those preconceptions, turning them into tools for her own empowerment. And even though her methods were undeniably criminal, there's this subversive element to her actions, really.
Right.
A challenge to the very system that was seeking to marginalize her.
And while we can't condone her crimes, there is that, a certain Robin Hood quality to her story.
Yeah.
That's hard to ignore. She used her ill-gotten gains to help others, like her mom, her coworker.
That's such an important point, and it complicates our understanding of her motivations, right?
Right.
She wasn't simply driven by greed or material wealth. There was this sense of loyalty, this desire to protect and care for the people that she loved.
And even if it meant breaking the law, It also makes you think about the role of, like, addiction in her life, right?
Right.
The thrill of the heist, the challenge of outsmarting the system.
Yeah.
It seemed to become this obsession for her, something she couldn't resist even as, the risks grew higher.
That's a really valid observation, and her later crimes, especially those that she committed in her 70s and 80s, really point to that compulsive element, that need to keep pushing the boundaries,
Right.
to keep testing her skills and outwitting authorities.
And you have to admire her skill. She was a master of disguise, a psychological manipulator, a brilliant strategist. It's almost like she was born to play this role.
Her talent is undeniable. The way she could blend in, gain people's trust, and execute these really elaborate heists is remarkable. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what could she have achieved if her brilliance had been channeled into a different path?
I know. So over the next few decades, Doris continued this life of crime.
Hmm.
She's arrested numerous times in the U.S. and abroad, using countless aliases and fake passports. I mean, she even pulled off a heist in Tokyo.
Wow, a testament to her adaptability, her ability to thrive in different cultures and environments. She was a true chameleon, constantly reinventing herself.
But despite her frequent run-ins with the law, she always managed to avoid long prison sentences, often because, well, the stolen jewels were never recovered.
Which raises some interesting questions about, the nature of evidence and the challenges of prosecuting a criminal as cunning and as elusive as Doris Payne. She was a master of her craft, leaving very little trace of her crimes.
And even in her 50s, she had established a base in Athens,
Okay.
stealing from tourist shops and then selling the loot in Amsterdam.
Mm.
It's like she created this intricate network that spanned multiple countries to facilitate her operations.
It really speaks to her incredible organizational skills and her ability to think on a global scale. She wasn't just a thief, she was a businesswoman, a criminal mastermind.
But her luck started to change in San Francisco. She was arrested at 52,
Okay.
faced multiple state and federal charges, extradited to Fort Worth, Texas. But guess what? She managed to escape U.S. Marshals by, yep, you guessed it, faking an illness and walking out of the hospital.
Seems like hospitals were her preferred escape route.
Right.
It's another example of her understanding of systems and her ability to exploit these weaknesses in security protocol.
She always returned to Cleveland, though. That's where her mother and boyfriend Kenneth lived.
Mm-hmm.
But in her early 60s, tragedy struck. She lost both of them, along with her best friend, to cancer.
That must have been such a devastating period for her. And it's possible that this immense loss fueled her subsequent actions, driving her deeper into a life of crime as a way to kind of cope with that grief and pain.
Yeah, and what followed was a 13-year spree of thefts,
Mhm.
mostly in the United States.
Right. And this period really highlights the compulsive nature of her behavior. It wasn't just about financial gain or survival anymore. It seemed like she was driven by this internal force, this need to continue the game.
Even at 77, she saw a diamond advertised in Harper's Bazaar, booked a flight to Denver, and stole it.
It's remarkable, isn't it? It speaks to her enduring passion for her craft, even in her later years. Like, she couldn't resist the allure of a beautiful jewel, the challenge of acquiring it through her unique methods.
But this time, she was caught, extradited to Denver, and served 5 years,
Yeah.
the longest prison sentence of her life.
Yeah, and this arrest really marked a turning point for Doris. The justice system was finally catching up with her, and the consequences were becoming more severe. It makes you wonder about the effectiveness of rehabilitation and the challenges of deterring someone who had lived a life of crime for so long.
By now, Doris had achieved a certain level of, fame.
Yeah.
Her story was captivating the media, the public. She became a folk hero of sorts, a symbol of, cunning and resilience.
It's a testament to her charisma, her ability to really capture the imagination. She was more than just a criminal. She was a legend, a larger-than-life figure who really challenged societal norms.
In 2011, at 81, she was found guilty of another department store theft, sentenced to 5 more years in California.
It's a sad reminder of that destructive cycle of addiction and compulsion. Despite the consequences, Doris seemed unable to break free from her past, from that need to continue the game.
And it's estimated that she made around $2 million from her heists. But she spent most of it,
Right.
had little to show for her years of crime.
It underscores the fleeting nature of material possessions, especially when they're acquired through illegal means. And it also raises questions about Doris's true motivations, right?
Yeah.
Was it really about wealth, or were there these deeper psychological factors at play, like a need for control, a desire to prove herself in a world that had often dismissed her?
Over the years, she used 32 aliases, 11 social security numbers, 9 passports.
It's mind-boggling, really.
It is. It speaks to her meticulous planning,
Yeah.
her ability to constantly reinvent herself,
Yeah.
stay one step ahead of the authorities. Even after her release, she couldn't resist the allure of her craft.
No.
Arrested again in 2016 at 86 for stealing a $2,000 bracelet.
Wow. It's like a poignant example of how deeply ingrained her behavior had become, It's almost as if stealing was as essential to her as breathing.
Right. She was given probation, but even that didn't deter her. Yeah, she had a couple more minor brushes with the law before seemingly fading into retirement.
It's a fitting end to an extraordinary life. Doris Payne, the jewel thief who really captivated the world
Right.
with her audacity, her intelligence, her unwavering spirit.
So Doris Payne's story, it's a complex one. It's a story of survival, defiance, this relentless pursuit of control in a world that often sought to deny her agency.
Mm-hmm.
And, she challenged our perceptions of what a criminal looks like and forced us to confront these uncomfortable truths about societal inequalities.
And the choices we make when traditional paths are blocked.
Right. Her story leaves us with more questions than answers. Was she a villain or a victim,
Right.
a product of her circumstances, or a master manipulator?
Yeah.
Well, it's up to each of us to decide.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, Doris Payne's life, anything but ordinary. Her legacy will continue to fascinate and intrigue for years to come.
Absolutely.
So if you are as captivated by Doris Payne as we are,
Mm-hmm.
we encourage you to dive deeper into her story. You can read her autobiography, Diamond Doris, or watch that documentary, The Life and Crimes of Doris Payne. You won't be disappointed.
And as you're kind of exploring her world, ask yourself, what does Doris Payne's story tell you about the choices we make, the paths that we choose,
Right.
and the forces that shape our destinies?